Hi, and welcome to Office Hours. Do not attempt to adjust your TV or your YouTube. It's Mitch Hill standing in for Alex Lindsay, who will be joining us a little bit later on. If you like Office Hours and you'd like to get involved, go to officehours.global to find out more how you can participate as a producer, asking questions and doing other things. The other way you can ask questions, if you want to do them right now, is to use the QR code right here, the little box to my side there. Take a shot with your camera there and make sure you ask your questions. You can also hit askofficehours.com, and that'll get you into the program. Today's Saturday. We will answer as many questions as we get, and when we're done answering, we just finish. That's how it works. That's what Office Hours is all about. Thanks for being here. Let's get it all started. Courtney, what's our first question?
Well, the first one comes in from Mr. Andy Kokendorfer in Vieira, Florida, and he says, Jabra Speak 2.75 displayed at Zoomtopia includes a microphone quality indicator, an LED that changes color based upon the presenter's voice quality. How? How do we do that? Thoughts?
Yeah, Jabra's been around a long time, and they've made some great stuff. I'm sure you have an answer for that, Courtney, so why don't you kick it off?
Well, I don't have one of these, but I do have the original Amazon Echoes, which use the same technique, which is beamforming. Multiple microphones that are mixed into a matrix and beamformed, and it chooses quality based on the direction, which microphone is the loudest. And it's kind of like a Dugan Auto mix, only a different mix matrix. And so it can probably just generate It lights up an LED probably from the direction side of the person who's speaking. This thing is a puck. It's let's take a look at it. It's designed to sit in the middle of a table like this. I think the LED changing color on the quality of your mic is just kind of a gimmick that's a byproduct of the beamforming.
Do you think it's a question of the quality of the reception of the voice or the quality of the person speaking?
It's probably the strength of the signal that's coming in from a specific direction, and if it's coming in equally from all directions, then it's not as good. If it's, if it's stronger coming in from microphone 1 than microphone 2, 3, or 4, then it'll give it a higher quality rating. So it depends on the strength and the direction, probably. My guess, I didn't program the thing.
Keep that in mind. Thanks very much. What's the next question?
Next question comes in from James Babbitt in San Diego, and he says, great interview yesterday on gray matter with Michael Krasny and Iain Mccaig. Iain's video seemed to focus and defocus. Is there any way to fix this with software in post?
I don't think you can really fix a soft image in software because you're dealing with in-between Gaussian blurs and things like that. It just doesn't. You can use a sharpen filter, but I rarely get great results from that. So it's slightly off. You could fix that. But the person that should answer why it was doing that would, of course, be Alex, who will be joining us a little bit later on. So we'll move on to our next question.
All righty then. Douglas Carmichael has a question. He says, what communication tools do you prefer for keeping large distributed teams connected asynchronously? Would Slack be the most versatile, or has something else taken over?
Well, here we use Unity for our comms in the background, and that's asynchronous by nature because we have the ability to hear comments and also respond to them. As far as Slacker, I'm afraid I don't know. I haven't used that particular program, but maybe Chris Fenwick has an answer for us.
So when Douglas says asynchronous, he means I can send a message out and you can receive it when you're ready to receive it. So Unity is the opposite of that because you have to be listening as I talk. Slack is a popular one. And I know a lot of companies that use it. I've used it on 1 or 2 projects because we were told we had to. And I wasn't crazy about it. I like just text messaging. And I know that's not a comms tool. I get it. And it doesn't have the benefit of being able to, attach a file and stuff like that. But my preference is to minimize the number of new pieces of software somebody has to log on to and make an account for just to do a job. So my preference is to just keep it simple. But a lot of people like Slack.
Yeah, and if it were less than asynchronous, remember the old days when they used to go over and they had to do only one thing at a time because they only had one channel. So
No. But Mitch, to be clear, the point is like a text message. I can send the message, and you don't have to pick up your phone when I send you the message. You get to read it on your own terms. So if you're in the middle of something and you look at it 30 seconds or 30 minutes or 30 days later, that's what Douglas means by asynchronous communication. I can put the information out there. You get to receive it on your own terms.
Roger that. Okay, Courtney.
Over.
What do you think?
Yeah, those of us here at office hours at the moment are using Discord because that is a good asynchronous communication system, and it uses private servers. So I think we're not, all of our data and communications isn't going to a public server somewhere seen by anybody outside of our Discord group. So it works well for us. People do use Slack and a variety of other means of communications, but I haven't used Slack, so I can't really speak on that.
Alex?
Yeah. I ran the last company I owned for about 5 years on Slack, so it's definitely something that, and it was one of those things that when we started doing it, there was very much of a wire. Like when what happens with Slack is some producer starts to use it for some project. Like, hey, we're just going to use Slack for it, and it's free, and you're like, why are we using this? Why are we using this? And then within like 2 months, you're like, someone will send you an email, and you're like, why are you emailing me this? This should just be in Slack. so anyway, so you get into a mode of wanting to have that communication, the ability to have it all threaded, and the ability to and again asynchronous. The thing that I didn't like about the hard part for me is finding messages and threads inside of text only, inside of messages. It's not a way to run a company, in my opinion. But I mean, we had at the time I had 40 employees, so it was a lot of chatter. And what was nice about it was we had the way we set up Slack is we had channels, and we do this a little bit inside of Discord as well, but we had lots of channels. And so as a producer, I saw all the channels, but I didn't necessarily interact with all of them. And then people could obviously do tons of direct stuff back and forth, but the channel, every time we built a new event, we would build this set of channels. The producers saw all the channels, and then everyone else, like the logistics, the people managing, like who's flying where, and another one's about the gear, and another one is about the show flow. And there's like all these little groups that are all talking amongst themselves about things that need to be done. Producers get to see all of it going by. I wonder what they're doing about that. And you'd go in and ask a question, and it was inside of that group. And so it was a very powerful way to separate those things out and make it all work. You can do the same thing in Discord, as Courtney said. I use Discord now. Like I don't, the problem for me is that I have so many other things that I'm doing in Discord. It's really, because it's a part of my social life as well as my professional life, it's easier to keep it all in one place. So, and Slack, we had thought about using Slack, and some organizations will use Slack as a kind of a value add. So Patreon uses it a lot as a value add to, if you're paying $10 a month, you get to be part of the Slack group, or $20 a month. It is crazy powerful in the political arena. So an unknown thing that happens in politics is that a lot of politicians have these of their most valued followers or whatever. They have like a Slack channel, that they talk to, and those things are invite only kind of things, and it helps people feel connected. So. And because it's not, and it's partially special because it's not Discord. Like they're not just sending you to Discord server; they're sending you to the Slack channel.
Do politicians call them Slackies?
Slackies, exactly. So anyway, it's a very useful product. It also manages privacy and stuff like that. We are private-ish in Discord, but I don't think Discord promises us the same level of privacy as we would get with something else. Anyway, go ahead, Chris.
Explain threaded like I don't understand what that means. I've heard people say that, and I don't get it.
A thread means that, I can be talking, I can have a thread that is just that conversation that's going through. So, for instance, A threaded conversation, tends to be like, this is all the, emails, if they're not threaded, are just all the emails that are coming in as they come in, and you see who was copied. Once they're threaded, you click on that email and you can see all the emails that not as if they were copied into it, but it keeps track of all of them and groups them together. And so a threaded conversation means that we've decided that this is the way I define threaded conversation is, this is the conversation we're having, and that conversation can be created almost really on the fly in Slack, of like, we're going to create a new little group here, like here, and then inside of that conversation, we're just talking about that. And in Slack, I think we probably had 100 channels in there of people just creating things that we need to keep track of in the office. When do we need coffee? There was like a cafe thread that was or channel that was there, and so, but you can, when you create the threads, it means the people that are connected, people that are connected to it can keep track of what just happened, rather than the problem with non-threaded conversations is I say, I'm interested in something, this thing, and then 3 other people talk, and then another person replies to this thing that was above it. That's not a threaded conversation. It's very confusing because you have like 4 conversations going on in the same channel, and a non-threaded conversation becomes really painful. And so you have to, I know when I'm in other Discord channels that don't have as many channels as we do. I mean, Discord servers that don't have as many channels as we do. They have a lot less channels, and the result is that you kind of wait. Like when someone puts a new thing in, like when you let people respond to it, and you don't just throw. It's kind of seen as disrespectful to throw another subject in right after someone put the first subject in, because you got to let everybody kind of respond to that one first. So you get into this kind of back and forth with folks that you don't need to do if you have channels or threads that will manage it.
So I'm working on an edit right now, and I think because I don't use Slack, the producer just started a group text message between the producer, director, EP, and myself. I think there was 1 or 2 other people in there.
And when they're not talking to you in that thread, they're or in that group, they're saying, "Oh, Chris."
No, which is fine. Wow, Alex, you say that like I don't think that happens every day at your house.
It does.
So, no, but my point is that group message is disposable. So in a week when this edit's done, I'll delete it, and it's only about this. So is that kind of a threaded
what we would
discussion?
Do is, when we built these channels, we had a set of channels that went for every project that we built, right? So these are the 8 channels or 10 channels that get, or 10 threads, or I don't know how we define it, but anyway, 10 sub channels for the main channel. So let's say we're doing a project in the Paris Expo or something like that. Under Paris Expo, there'd be all of the again, logistics, planning, whatever all those things are that'd be under there. As soon as we finish the project, we'd either delete it or archive it, and then it just disappears. Then it's but it's there. But really, what's kind of nice about it is we generally archived everything. So then what would happen is, what did we do back then? We could go back to that conversation, and people would be pinning things like all the hotels that we're going to stay in, the whatever, and so it kept a lot of information very quickly. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Maybe I'm late to the party, but I think a discussion about ways to use Slack in particular might be interesting.
Yeah. It's a good Monday discussion. So we'll put it on the plate. It's good. We can talk. I'm sure all of us use it differently.
I'm going to go see if I still have it on my phone.
All right. Next question.
Bye.
Thanks, Mitch.
Ronnie Hofsøy from Tromsø, Norway asks, what lenses to use on Blackmagic Ursa broadcast G2 EF mount or Cinema 6K L mount for green screen work on background plates? Fixed versus Zoom's EF versus L mount. Remote controllable versus manual. Keen in Ultimatte 12.
Jesse?
For this question, I'm going to assume that you're talking more about static corporate type green screen work and not action filmmaking type green screen work. If it's the latter, the answer is infinitely more complicated. In terms of lens choice, you want an expensive lens versus a cheap lens. You want it to be a tack sharp lens and a very, very clean image. So whether it's L mount or EF, I would just go with a really high quality lens. If I had to pick between the fixed and zoom, I would go with fixed, because those can be cleaner builds. What you really want is for your subject to be tack sharp, and the green screen behind them to be slightly out of focus if possible. So you want to be hanging around a 4.0, 5.6, somewhere on there with the lens. And that means you want a whole lot of light because you also want to be at the camera's native ISO. You should be at ISO 400 or below because you want as minimal noise as possible in the image that you're shooting. But I think the real trick of it is an evenly lit and very well lit and very green screen. And Alex, is it okay if I toss to you because you speak on that very well on the importance of a clean green?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that, again, I agree with what Jesse said. I would use EF just because they're easier to find than L mounts. There's just a wider range. EF is the Canon mount, and L mount was developed by Leica, and but it's used by a lot of different folks. So I think that you're probably, but I don't think you're going to find any difference in the lens itself, other than you get more choices. We have shot with fixed lenses, but the main thing is that oftentimes you're trying to reframe things quickly, and moving the camera back and forth or changing the lenses slows things down. I do agree that it's sharper to do that, to use a prime lens. But I think that we typically have gone with zoom lenses because we're lazy. Anyway, and it hasn't made a huge difference. I do agree, high quality lens is important. Vignetting is not your friend. So any kind of thing that would vignette, you don't want to be on either end of the lens. So if you get a 24 to 70 lens, which is a pretty typical lens for us to use, the Canon L series 24 to 70 is a very typical lens for us to use. We probably wouldn't use it much wider than 30 or much longer than 60, out of the concern that both sharpness and little vignetting can be possible, especially all the way out. And it's really subtle, but you notice it when you're actually keying the footage. So the most important thing that Jesse spoke to was the evenness of the lens. I don't do green screen. I don't say I can't do green screen, but I won't do green screen without RGB parade. So the RGB parade is the output of your camera. Now it's gotten really easy. There's lots and lots of things that have RGB parades. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're getting good separation with your green screen, and then that the luminance across it. And again, we're assuming that you're doing corporate, there's a lot of complications if you're doing a VFX shot, but if you're doing someone standing up in front of a background or sitting in front of a background, there's no excuse to not have a perfect screen. I used to do 10 to 11 hours of green screen a week, and it was almost automated. We had an intern, we were paying $15 an hour. They'd sit there and just run through it and we would check it, and it was done. What's important there is you got to separate. That green screen has to be lit separately from the subject. We use large sources on either end and flag them off. We typically use green bulbs or green LEDs or green gel it's called green on green. It's really dangerous if you don't flag it properly. But if you flag it properly, you get a very pure green for your foreground. And then minimum of 5 feet. We usually shoot for 10 feet to the screen. Those kinds of things, that's how you can mass produce green screen and get every single hair. And the Ultimatte 12 will, if you give it, it'll do well with less than what I just described. If you give it what I just described, we've tested the Ultimatte 12, and it will key water. Like you can see the highlights and everything else. It'll feel like a physical thing of water in front of a green screen, and it will key it properly. Ultimatte will take plants that are green in front of a green screen and key them perfectly. So if you give it a very tight solution, it will give you an incredible product. So if you have any other questions about that, let us know, because Ultimatte 12 is a pretty amazing piece of hardware. I had the Ultimatte 11 444, and I paid $35,000 for that. Not that I'm bitter. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, be bitter with me. I did the same thing. Yeah, the great thing with the Ultimatte is when somebody turns their head and they have glasses on, is being able to deal with that little spot right there. It does a great job of it.
Yeah, and Blackmagic improved it. I mean, after they bought it, they made it not only much less expensive, but actually much better. So they've done a good job with that product, as they often do when they buy it. Companies that haven't figured out their financial model but have some good core technology. That's Blackmagic's MO. Next question.
Matt Cool from Montreal, Canada. Looking for a small 8-channel digital audio mixer with sliders for small live events, but haven't found anything. Does one exist?
Chris?
Definitely, Matt. There's all kinds of choices. What I would ask, the question I would ask first, though, is do you want your audio to leave your device? If you're mixing separate devices that have to be all wired together, then yes, you definitely want an actual mixer. My preference these days is to do as much stuff inside the box as possible. And what I mean by that is I don't want to pull things out of my computer, take it through a piece of hardware, and then pump it back into the computer. So my current audio setup is I'm using these little Korg Nano controllers. And yes, I have 2 of them. It's almost like having 2 MEs worth of stuff. And they run a software-based mixer. So everything remains in the box. I'm not taking anything out of the computer just to mix it. I'm controlling it inside the box. The downside with a mixer like that is it's a MIDI mixer. So when you first fire up in the morning, you have to touch all the faders. Otherwise, where they physically are in the throw may not match what was left behind or what booted in the software. So you have to kind of wiggle everything. Also, I want to point out this because it's kind of fun. Those 3 white faders and the red fader are super important. And I actually just used nail polish to colorize them so that they were really obvious to find. And the red one especially, that's what that fader, when I push that fader up, it pumps my sound from my computer out to Zoom if I'm editing with somebody. And I make it red so it's easy to see, and I can glance over right now and know that I'm not sending anything out to Zoom except for my voice.
Yeah, I don't know of a lot of them that are physical, that are mixers, but there are a couple that are kind of this hybrid where they have digital sliders and so on and so forth. The QSC TouchMix, which Mickey pointed out, TouchMix 8 has a screen. I had some bad experiences with that mixer, so I wouldn't jump on that one immediately. But it could have been user error. But it was a hard couple hours getting that one to work. The other one that we have used in the past for very small events is the DL1608. That's from Mackie, and what it does is it has a hardware device that you plug into, and then as an iPad, it'll let you lock an iPad into it, and so then you have the iPad controls or your sliders to make that work. And so it's a little quirky. It's kind of like the controller for the XR18 or the XR12. Which is the thing that I would as soon as you said digital mixer, where my mind went immediately was XR18 or XR12. I've used, we've had a lot of XR18s and been really happy with them. So, I mean, for what they do, there's the delay in the audio drives me a little crazy, which is that you add it as an FX instead of just as a channel delay. I think my brain, every time I look at it, I just go, I don't understand why they do that. But that could be possible. Next question.
Next question coming in from Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota. Here's a gear acquisition systems alert or syndrome. I've been taking the next plunge into the Blackmagic design world with the purchase of a used Pocket Cinema 4K with a cage. I'm thinking of adding some Cine glass, and I'm wondering what follow focus units I should be looking at.
I think the thing you have to decide is whether you want it to be a mechanical, like a mechanical follow focus, or an actual motored follow focus. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, if you're going to motored, I highly recommend the Tilda line. They have a Nano and a Nano 2, I think they just came out with. They're flawless, and they got a great fizz that works with it.
Yeah, the DJI, I think, makes them also, as well as Teradec. So those are other ones to look at there. None of them are going to be Prestons, but they are a lot of them are pretty good. They're just, it's what you're looking for is what the resolution of the motor is, and how many bits. Go ahead, Jesse.
And once you get into that, remember that you have to have that camera and the lens very, very securely mounted, because the motors can bump the lens and jiggle the camera. So really, really lock that thing down.
Good, Chris.
Mitchell, can you explain fizz?
Oh, that's the focus and zoom device that's handheld that you can either adjust it remotely, or some of them are attached to the side of the camera. But it's very, very cool.
I was giving you a softball. Focus, iris, zoom.
Yeah.
3 controls.
Sorry.
Yeah, and you know the bottom line is with these motors, it's hard to make them cheap. So as you start spending more on these little motors, you start getting higher resolution, more stability. Those are those are the things that you want to kind of look for. We haven't had a ton of experience with the less expensive ones, but we've but you should give them a shot. Best thing to do is order them from somewhere you can return them, play with them hard, and then send them back if they don't work. Next question.
Jack Rupel from Breckenridge, Colorado, asking, any word on when SmallRig will release an iPhone 15 Pro Max specific product? Will it have an SSD drive mount incorporated, mechanical switch, shortcut button?
Go ahead, Courtney.
I don't know about any SmallRig updates for the iPhone 15, but I want to come out with something for the iPhone 15 now that it has the USB-C. It's a combination power bank and a 4 terabyte hard drive, all the single USB-C connection, just a short jumper that goes in, and it holds itself on the back with the bag support magnets, with the
I think
magnetic charging.
I think we're going to see some pretty crazy solutions, with the 15.
Keep your camera powered for a long time, record for great lengths of time.
I could imagine someone building something that you slide your 15 into, and it's got like the moment lenses on the front, and it's got battery and hard drive, and it plugs in, and it's got XLR sticking out the side, and yeah, I need to redo them. I posted that video on my own YouTube channel. The video I did, I don't know, 13 years ago or something like that, about the original one, and I built up this little shoulder rig for it, and everything else was all excited. And now I feel like we need to machine a new one to show off what could be done there. Yeah, go, Chris.
What do you think the chances are, Alex, of Apple marketing camera OS to camera manufacturers?
We've talked about that for a long time. So they won't market it to. I think we had talked about. And I know because every time someone got close to it, everyone would ping me on Twitter, going, "Hey, did you see this thing?" And Sony made one that you could slide your camera into. There's Sony made one that you could clip a full frame lens and sensor. It was like just a sensor holder with a lens, and it would tie into your iPhone, so you could use your iPhone as a thing. And then you had the DxO, of course, which I actually made the demo video for them because we were excited about it. And so there's been a bunch of solutions here. I don't think Apple would give up its OS for that, but I think that having the phone slide into now a USB-C, there's enough I/O there that you could have it. You could build a rig, that looks like a camera rig that you slide the phone into. It could even have a sensor on the front that you just have. The hardest part for camera manufacturers, especially smaller ones, is building an interface. And they don't have to do that here, and so they wouldn't have to make up their own interface and their own LED, so if you could slide the camera and the camera becomes the brain, you could have a 1-inch sensor on the front if you wanted to, and put it in there and have the camera run the whole thing, and have it all recording to the camera now that the camera can do ProRes. And so there's a lot of opportunities there, either using the camera lenses themselves or interface, but USB-C to the camera kind of changes a lot of things. So
I think we should just make the announcement video for this product. Just make it all Apple-y.
We should do a Kickstarter.
For more information, contact tim@apple.com.
I think we should just do a Kickstarter. We should raise $250,000 and then say we're going to go for research in the Bahamas. And say, sorry, we couldn't make it.
I was like, $250,000. That's nowhere near enough. Oh, okay, that's plenty.
Plenty for a summer in a really nice chalet.
So.
No one's ever going to do a Kickstarter with me now. I've ruined everything. I would never do that, by the way.
real quickly, if you don't mind. A good friend of mine got a huge promotion at his company years ago. And I said, what does this mean? What kind of scratch you taking home? And he goes, I don't want to talk about that. I go, it's a public company. I can look it up. And he tells me, but the coolest part is I can sign a PO for $250,000, no questions asked. And I said, you mean I could send you an invoice for a quarter? And he goes, well, yeah, you could do that. And I could pay it once, and then I'll never have a job again.
Yeah, exactly. You got enough. It'll give you enough rope to hang yourself with. Next question.
From Talalik Lopez Waterman in Phoenix, Arizona. Once again, I'm finding some frustration with the DaVinci Resolve delivery page. So I'm revisiting this question from about a year ago. Can I add a codec option to the options in the delivery tab? And also H.265 is failing. Do I need to install H.265?
Go ahead, Jesse.
I'm assuming that what you mean by adding options is that you want to change the options entirely that are available for you in the delivery tab, and I don't believe that you can do that. If what you're asking is, can you set all your options and build a preset? You can absolutely save as a new preset right there. Yes, it's not the least frustrating delivery tab we've ever seen in our lives, and we never use anything except for Apple ProRes. We do our H.264, H.265 encoding outside of Resolve. What we want to do is get the mezzanine codec out of Resolve and then work with it in other more flexible pieces of software.
Yeah, I love Resolve. I'm in Resolve almost every day. So, and I would never, ever, never, never, ever, ever export to H.264, H.265 out of Resolve. It is designed as a proxy. It is not designed, the way it's set up is it's going to export something that basically is at proxy level. It's not going to be something you could actually deliver to anybody. I always do ProRes out, as Jesse does, and then I take it into compressor and compress it down to whatever I need it to be. Now, I will admit that I generally do that out of Final Cut too. Like, I generally always export ProRes because it's faster to export, and then I can just keep on repeating the compression to get what I want. Instead of having to I got to send it back out again. I don't really export, my project without it just being in ProRes. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I concur. Tlaloc, think about this. Any edit has, masks and feathers and keys and maybe a Gaussian blur behind it, but all that stuff. And so every one of those processes takes cycles and slows down your export. That's why quite often our export takes longer to kick out than it takes to actually watch the show. So by making it a ProRes, and we have hard drives, just kick out a ProRes. You get two steps. One, as Alex just said, you can make an H.264, an H.265. You can make a WMV if you're still living in the 80s. You can send it out multiple different ways. You can fiddle with the compression algorithm or the data rates and get the files smaller, but you don't have to redo all the math on all of those keys and feathers and barzomai. Plus, if you're done, now you have the final delivery file already ready to go, that you don't have to go out and kick it out again. You know what it looks like because the client has already approved the H.264 that you posted for him on Frame.io or whatever. You have the file. Now I'm done. So I have done the same workflow for 25 years. I've always done it this way ever since I started doing things full digitally.
Yeah, and I think I probably exported something on a Final Cut as H64 once or twice, and it crashed or did something weird, and then I was like, okay, I'm never doing that again. And there's nothing worse than it getting halfway through the render and something goes sour. And I will say, if you're on a Mac, you should use compressor to do the compression. It's optimized
Super
for the
fast.
Mac, and it just eats up the entire piece of hardware to export something out.
The one exception to Tlaloc that I do is if I get a bunch of footage in that I have to window dub a bunch of stuff, sometimes I'll window dub straight to a really tiny file with, for the burn.
Can you define window dub?
Sure. Window dub, burned in time code so that a producer can sit there and look at it and go, oh, let's go to 17 minutes, 32 seconds, and 12 frames. And the main reason for that is it's going to be big files. It's Alex's famous thing, end of the day, let the machine do its thing. And I'll do it at the end of the day because then that way they're done. They're done when I come back after dinner or the next morning or whatever.
Hey, go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, Tlaloc, you're getting good advice here. It's a general workflow thing, too, that when you're mastering anything, to do it in a mezzanine format. I do it with audio. Even if I'm recording an audio, I'm not going to export it or save it as an MP3 file because if I need to go back to it, I got to uncompress it, then recompress it. Same thing applies to videos. So it's always best to have it in a format that's not very lossy.
Next question.
James Babbitt from San Diego has a question that we asked earlier, and because Alex is back, we'd like to ask it again. It's a great interview yesterday on Gray Matter with Michael Krasny and Iain Mccaig. Ian's videos seem to focus and defocus. Is there a way to fix this with software in post?
Nope. It's a, I mean, someday there might be. We make a conscious decision with Gray Matter that it is a radio show that if you come to the live event, you get the benefit of, so if you're a member and you get access to the, if you get the benefit of watching the video. So you can add, the two things you get as a member of Gray Matter is that number one is you get to watch the video of the interview, which is a pretty simple setup for us. And then you also get to ask questions live, while we're having that conversation. And so, but until we have the revenue to send out kits with cameras, we've decided not to depend on the far end to have a good camera. That's really the problem, is that people still don't have good cameras at home. and so Iain, I think, was coming in from, he had a good mic. He had the same mic that we use, but he was coming in from his webcam that's on his computer. And I think that it was doing the best it could. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, another in general remark for me is that I've gotten footage before from clients that are soft and they want me to sharpen it. And there are sharpen plugins out there that you can apply, but they never, ever really undo it completely. In fact, the artifacts end up causing more trouble than the soft focus in the first place.
Yeah, and so and by the way, if you missed the Iain's interview, it'll be out next week. And then we're going to get a chance to interview him in only a couple, I think the 16th, 10/16. So Josh is probably writing that down really quickly, because I had put Iain on for 10/16 and then taken him off and then put him back on again just this morning, because Iain pinged me and said, when are we doing that? So anyway, so Iain will be on 10/16. You'll want to be there. He's great. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsave here from Tromsø, Norway, asking the question, remote desktop in an Apple world, Apple's own Jump desktop or anything else, not using Teamviewer, Parsec is now a part of Unity, and Teradici is now HP, both good ones. Can we discuss the differences?
Wow, they're all good. I mean, as far as the remote desktop, I still use Apple Remote Desktop as the base, but we usually put AnyDesk on the computer to get in. If we can't, if something doesn't show up immediately, we want to have something that we can just type in this number and we'll get in, and then we make sure that it's set up for Apple Remote Desktop, usually across a VPN. The Apple Remote Desktop gives us a lot more control over the computer, and it's a little tighter connection, but it's not as reliable when you're in a WAN. So that's for us, that's what we use, and we've gone through a lot. Teamviewer is just too expensive. I haven't used Jump Desktop that much, and Teradici and Parsec we still view as kind of a PC solution. So they're very good. They're excellent solutions, but not something that we've typically used with the Mac. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, has anyone ever laced cabling like the U.S. Bell Systems technicians used to do?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Used to, back in the olden days, back before they came up with spiral wrap, lacing stuff, or the expandable nylon stuff. Before they came up with that kind of stuff, we used to lace, which you'd buy this 50-pound test lace from DigiKey. You can still buy it 1,500 feet, but it's about $40 a roll. And I think it probably shows us in the video, you'd loop it around, run it down, loop it around through itself, run it down, gather up all the cables. And it's kind of like a little sewing procedure. So if you're good at knitting, you'd probably be good at lacing. The old school lacing, it's what they used to do. There is Chris Fenwick is showing the technique.
Is that actually Chris lacing that cable?
Yes, Chris is behind his console
Clearly,
right
it's
now,
not me. If you saw
lacing
the
up
back
his
of my
console.
desk.
But it's kind of tedious, and I think the spiral wound plastic where you can bring a cable out at any point along the line is a little bit easier to use these days than the lacing. But the lacing was really cheap, and you could throw that roll of lace into your toolkit and be ready to lace up an entire facility.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm sorry to admit that I have used that before. And what's unique about it, particularly what Chris was showing, is that the nylon or fiber material was sort of a waxy material, so that when you tied it and held it, it actually would stick there, so you could go to the next loop and do it over and over again until you lost your mind. But also, I had a lot of practice at boys' camp making those little lanyards, so that helped me.
Next question.
Kind of like dental floss on steroids, you know.
Exactly. Guy Cochran from Seattle is here. His question is, HDR color really pops on the YouTube feed today. Can you explain the signal chain?
Yeah, if you're watching this with an HDR monitor, you'll see us probably pop a lot more. Sometimes in better, sometimes for worse. We're still working on that. But what we're testing right now every Saturday, and then you'll see us test it all of the week of Thanksgiving and the week of Christmas, is we are moving to 4K HDR 5.1, and so there's baby steps. It's not all working yet, but we've decided on Saturdays we'll work on it. We'll do it a whole week during Thanksgiving, and we'll do it a whole week during Christmas. Our goal is to be able to switch over completely by the first of the year. So when we get to 2024, we enter it at that resolution and with that color. We're still having some little glitches here and there that we're working through, but I think that we're getting closer to making that work. This has been a project for us for about 2 years. so it's not, it started with us doing some HDR, kicking. I can't believe it's been 2 years, but I realize it really has been. We started banging on, some HDR stuff, seeing what was possible. And in that time, YouTube has made the HDR possible, made the 5.1 possible. And so you'll see, we haven't really experimented with the 5.1. Right now, it's mostly the HDR. But we will continue to play with it. So let us, definitely give us feedback on it. Maybe we probably should put together some channel and another channel. But you probably put it in. We'll find a channel for it there to talk about what you see and what you don't see. But I think it's going to be pretty interesting with some of the SRT stuff that we're talking about. So when we get this working, the next step will be to figure out this kind of dual pipeline. And I think that's probably we'll have to figure out whether we call it 3.0 or not. But the dual pipeline where we're all talking in WebRTC like this, but we're delivering back to the edit bay SRT, each one of us. And for the people who have that pipeline built into their system. And in that case, we could send 4K 10-bit back to if we had enough bandwidth and we have the tools to do it for the panelists. And then it'll look really nice. Like considerably better than broadcast. And that's been kind of our slow goal. And what's interesting about it is it's not just that'll take a bunch of upgrades that'll take all of next year because we now need 4K cameras and we need 4K outputs from our cameras and 10-bit and log and all kinds of other things to make that work. But the goal is that by doing it every single day, things that we would think of were hard become really boring, which, and as they get boring, more of us can use them in other places. So we know, oh, right, these are the things we have to worry about. So anyway, so we're working on it. If you've got if you have an iPad or an iPhone and you look at the show, you'll see it pop there too. So if HDR TV, now the only way you'll hear the 5.1, which you're not going to hear anything today, but when you start really moving towards the 5.1, you'll only hear it if you have a TV system with a surround sound. If you have a phone or a iPad, you can see, and any device that shows HDR, you should be able to see us in HDR. Now we're hopefully looking okay in SDR as well. There's a little bit, that's part of what we're trying to figure out is how to look good in both, because we know that a lot of people will not watch it in HDR. So we're slowly creeping towards that. And if you have questions about that, Saturday's a great day to ask that. Any of the technical stuff. What's happening is that, to go back to the original question from Guy, is that we're going into Zoom ISO. We're separated out of Zoom ISO. All of these signals go into FSHDRs. So we have a channel in the FSHDRs for every single person. So we can actually shade every person individually, which I was going to do today. I'm going to try to do a little bit before the end of the show. I had a little problem this morning before the show, so I wasn't able to get set up for it. So, but you'll see us start to shade everybody. So, like for instance, John and Courtney are maybe a little overexposed. Mitchell's probably about right. Chris and Jesse are possibly a little underexposed. We'll take a look in their foreground, and so we'll kind of play with, like, Jesse's got great stuff in the background, but so we'll play with, and you'll see us kind of playing with those dials on our end a little bit. And again, if you've got suggestions, go ahead and send them in to us. So it's going to be a process over the next 3 months, as we work through it. But we're really excited about it. And I think that, the goal is, again, when we think about also how do we build virtual events and are they viable, having a show that comes up every day that, let's say by next NAB, looks dramatically better than any show on TV that's all being done online. I think it's a useful thing to kind of set a stake in the ground, in that area, and have people not be able to use that it's online as an excuse for it not to be great. All right, next question.
I've got a question. Have you had a chance to try out some of the new Sonoma features?
Go ahead, John.
Yes, I played with the #1 feature of Sonoma, the moving wallpapers.
That seems to be what everybody's excited about.
I've played with at least 6 or 7 of them, and I'm trying to figure out which one I like the best.
Go ahead.
Oh, and the fireworks only work with Apple Silicon.
Okay, there we go. Go ahead, Mitchell.
That was mine, John, but wait for it. Here's what happens when you do this. You get the snowing picture stuff, and you've got this, and you've got balloons and fireworks, and oh dear, oh my. So there's something to annoy the back end with just a little bit.
Go ahead, Chris.
The real game, Mitchell, is I believe that there are 8 different gestures, and can you figure them all out?
Yeah, now and Mitchell, you made your Apple camera, the web camera for Zoom. Is that how that works?
No,
it goes
any camera
basically through my ATEM as it did before. It's almost exactly the way it was before, except
so it just shows up as the ATEM camera. But if you do the gestures, it just does it.
It just does it. I don't know how it gets it in there, but it does it to
doesn't make any sense, Alex.
UVC.
Any camera on the system. It's weird. But I think that we should institute a swear jar. So anybody who accidentally has that pop up on the show, they have to put $20 into a Venmo account.
What did you just do to get the balloons?
There's 8 different gestures. You have to figure them all out.
In some countries,
and they're transparent too. That's what's crazy.
So here's a problem with all of this. In some countries, what Mitchell just did is a swear word, and then they gave us balloons. Like,
yay, we're cursing.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a good idea.
I've just begun making gestures.
We need a swear jar. We need a swear jar. And if you accidentally do it, you get charged, and then we give that money to some sort of charity.
There you go. Next question.
Next question from Zach Stallsmith of Chautauqua, New York. I'm experimenting with some new hardware in my live stream setup. Can I use a hard fader on a MIDI controller, such as the X-Touch, to manually control the speed of the transition bar in vMix? My end goal is to have a manual control to have an overlay.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do it with X. You might be able to do it with X-Touch. I don't know for sure about X-Touch. I mean, there are many MIDI controllers. There's, anything that has a MIDI controller is able to take that information and then pass it back in. So, I think that in our the chat, a lot of people are talking about central control. So central control could take that information and then convert it into a format that would be possible to use that with. You just have to have, generally with most of these pieces of hardware, you got to figure out what protocol they're in. It's just a matter of converting that protocol to something else. And if you're talking about an ATEM, the best way to control the ATEM is the Mix Effect Pro. Next question.
From Jack Rupel in Breckenridge, Colorado. Found any short 90-degree USB-C cords for external SSD drives on a 15 Pro Max?
Courtney?
Yeah, I've found some. I don't have the 15 Pro Max, but I get these from Amazon. I've used them on my non-Apple phones. They work quite well. They're right-angle USB-C. They're full charging. It says right here, works with iPhone 15, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Plus. And they're 1-footers. It's about the shortest ones I could find. They may make a 6-incher or something, but these were 1 foot. 3 of them for $12. Such a deal.
Jesse?
And I'm assuming that you're talking about USB-C, not USB 3. Also, Condor Blue makes a 5-inch USB-C. Only one of them is at only one end is at 90 degrees, and the other is straight on.
Those guys at Condor Blue, they think of everything. Next question.
From Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida. Speaking of collaboration tools, rip Google Jamboard, hardware software whiteboard. I like the web and mobile versions, and everyone has a Google account. Do you use online whiteboards?
So here's the problem with the giant Surface that Microsoft did or does in Google's Jamboard is that they were bringing back something that is not future driven. so they were like, people want to be comfortable, so we're going to give them a board that they're comfortable with. But when you draw on the board, you know, it created this thing like, I can get all the resolution I need to talk to you about something with this, right? So I'm drawing on a board that's in front of me. I don't need a big board to turn to or a giant board to work on. You know, this is enough resolution. In fact, usually if I go and I want to make it thinner, and it's like, it gets to a point where it's just hard for you to see on your end. And so the reality is that you just you didn't need a big board, and neither does the Surface need to be a big board. It's cool. And old people that, you know, old executives that have done a lot of this stuff with whiteboards, you know, I don't mean old people, but it's old thinking, will go, oh, that's cool. Like, that's what I'm used to. But it is not, it's just the past, you know, and so it was never going to work. like it was never going to, like, and so I think that I think I said that when it came out, like, that's never going to work. Like, you know, and so small pads, also the little glass thing that people put in front, like, it locks you down so much. You got to look at how it's locking down your cameras, locking down what you're able to do. So things like Video Pencil that Michael Forrest works on, or the little thing that I'm working on with Juan, or other things like that, that's far more effective than any kind of weird whiteboard, smartboard, all those things. That's for people who aren't willing to give up the past to move to the future. So Google finally gave up because no one cared about it, because it doesn't work. Next question.
From Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. What will the web camera requirements for panelists when office hours goes to 4K?
It'll still be, we'll be able to scale up 2K. It's just people who want to slowly move to that, they can. And it's not going to be something that everybody has to do. You know, so I think it's just that they'll be, you know, like, they'll just be 4K if people want to use it. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
You'll hear a lot of this. Oh, you're still using that 1080 feed.
I think that the average person will not be able to tell the difference between the 1080s scaled up to 4K and the 4K. But we will.
I mean, I guess if you want to use that camera, I guess that's okay. There's going to be a lot of Alex Lindsay guilt and shame.
That's not coming till 2026. Like, you know, there's a solid 2 more
That
years.
happens on a daily with you. Don't kid yourself.
Next question.
Next one in from Bill Mew in Tunbridge Wells, UK. Yesterday, I asked about the Magewell Director Mini. It was dismissed for having just 2x HDMI. It also has 2x USB and multiple SRT and HDI in and out. Plus, it's small enough for a roving team to use and feed back to a studio via SRT. Many more use cases.
Go, Jesse.
Bill, I apologize. I am old. My bones have calcified. I really want HDMI in straight across the board. I'm sure that this thing is better than I labeled it on the previous episode, and thank you for calling me out.
It could be interesting. I think the bottom line is we have to test it, and it's just a matter of one of us getting one to test it. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it has a USB-C input for a webcam, so that we could use the Insta360 link into one and still have some HDMI inputs to use to switch between. So it's very handy for that kind of stuff. And I don't know if those 2 USB inputs are both inputs or one is an output that's used to be a webcam out into another computer or not.
And what's the cost on it? What is it? What are they charging for it?
I can't remember. I think it's about $600 or something, isn't it?
Yeah. So, it is. I mean, and I will say that Magewell has come a long way in doing these things. I'm just trying. It's $1,200, or I think, yeah, $1,200, $1,300. So it's it's up there. Yeah, I'd be interested to see someone use it, and I think that's the bottom line, is that we just need to see someone using it and figure out what the practical use case is. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, how are we getting to 4K when Zoom won't pass 4K natively?
It's a great question. So when we how we're doing 4K now is we're all getting scaled up. That's how that happens. So we're all being scaled up to 4K. So if you see us now and we look really sharp, that's as good as 1080p that's getting scaled up. The future, somewhere in 2020, late 2024, 2025, is going to be some of us will have SRT, and SRT can deliver that to the system separately as 4K. And so we would need to have a 4K subsystem. It changes a lot of things for us. So we're not trying to say that we're going to do that anytime soon. It could be another year and a half before we get there, but we'll start to play with it. The first thing will be is just to get not 4K so much as a 10-bit solution with SRT back to the studio. So that'll be the first thing. So we won't have to change the resolution. Right now, it's being scaled, I believe, in the FS HDR, is where we're scaling. No. It's being scaled before it goes. It's being scaled by the ATEM, because the ATEM is running 4K. So the graphics that you see are 4K. The only thing that's 1080p is the signals from the participants. The big advantage of that is that even if we don't change what we're doing here anytime soon, if we start playing videos back for you, or we take a 4K input from, let's say, a live view or something local, all of that's going to be in 4K HDR. And it means that we will look reasonably good at 4K HDR, but the source footage that's coming in will look amazing at 4K HDR. So that's that's what we're kind of that's the thing that really it's us keeping up with a 4K source that may be coming in from either a live view or a remote location or something in a studio. So those are the things that are possible there. So it has less to do with us in the short term and more to do with the other things that we could pump into this. Next question.
Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in Phoenix, Arizona, asking, excellent answers on my Resolve question. Thank you. Can I export transparency in ProRes from Resolve?
Jesse?
Yes, you can. And we're going to jump over to Resolve to do exactly that. So we're in the Deliver tab. And what you want to do is go from Apple ProRes 422 to something like 4444 or 4444XQ. And you'll see that the Export Alpha option comes up, and you can tick that box. And there you go. You got Alpha.
Yeah, and if you have a good example for this, if you want to do lower thirds or you want to build something into something like Resolve, you can export that out. You can load that into one of the HyperDeck Minis, and those will do key fill. They have two outputs from them. Obviously, there's a lot of software that can do that as well, but you could get it all the way into hardware if you wanted to. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, in the old days, we used to use the animation codec to do that, and I'm wondering if that works in Resolve also.
I don't think anybody uses the animation codec anymore. Maybe you still use it? Oh, okay.
I do sometimes, just for old time's sake.
So cute. I have no idea. I didn't even know it was still there. No, in all fairness, I used it for everything for years. So yeah. Next question.
From Jack Rupel in Breckenridge, Colorado, can I connect my Link 360 to my 15 Pro? I guess it means the Pro Max 15 and multi-view or switch cameras?
I don't think so. I don't think you can do that. Well, not yet. The Link 360 seems to be pretty quirky, to be honest, when it comes to connecting to computers. And so it likes to just have a normal connection to the computer, and you do anything funky, I think that hopefully they'll think about that, because I think, to your point, that'd be a great solution. That would work really well. So hopefully they'll think about that or consider it. Next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida, asking, Alex, I recently noticed you're in the clickety mechanical keyboard camp. Which one? And does it have a Mac layout?
It does have a Mac layout, and this is a DOS keyboard. I don't have any good. It's so wired into my desk, I can't pick it up even to show it to you. But it's, I like little things like the fact that it's got a little volume knob on one side that just is very. You think that it doesn't matter, and it seems silly, but it's really great to just turn things up and down there. And it has some little play and record and jump things, but you have movement, when I'm typing, and I like the I like the movement of it. I don't like how much noise it makes, to be honest, but it does make you feel like you're working harder. And so, like you feel like you're being more effective and you're getting more things done because you can hear the and it also, I found that at first I thought it was going to annoy the clients when I'm taking notes while I'm talking to them, but it makes them feel like you're working, like you're listening to, like they'll say something and they hear click, 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 and they realize that I'm writing down what they just said. And I think that they actually like that. Anyway, a quick reminder that tomorrow is the introspection day. If you've got comments, questions, concerns, more questions about what we do here at Office Hours, or more philosophical questions. Sometimes we'll jump over them a little bit here in Office Hours during the week, but on the weekends, on Sunday especially, we're willing to usually chew on something for 10 or 15 minutes. So if you've got those, come tomorrow and ask those questions. We'll jump into the second hour. Got to do that right on the time instead of when I say it. Next question.
Next question for Douglas Carmichael. Dish Network has a channel for a livestock auction company in rural Texas. Considering most high bandwidth circuits, Metro, Ethernet et al., are in urban areas, how would you get the program feed to Dish? And how would they find crew in a rural market?
Courtney?
Well, it depends on how much money there is in it. They can roll a mobile satellite truck and go and shoot a Q-band satellite up to one of the transponders that Dish has on their satellites, and they could bring it in that way, or they could bring it in on an optical backhaul, or they could use Starlink and go into, all of the head-ends for Dish Network or DirecTV have very strong fiber connections to them, high-speed fiber connections to them, so that you could hit any internet server and find their way to their head end that way and carry it that way. But a lot of times they use satellite uplinks. If there's enough money into it, they'll roll a truck and put it out in the middle of a cow field if necessary, and send your information up. And they get crew. You'd be surprised at the number of technical savvy their people are on rural ranches out there. They're using satellite feeds to guide their combines, to cut their crops, and they're using drones to monitor livestock. They're a little more sophisticated than you might think.
Dish channel 9612, it looks like, is the one where you can see some auctions. That'd be so much fun. I had no idea. I had no idea that they had auctions on Dish Network. They need to put that on YouTube TV. That's all I got to say. That's got to be something that we have more access to. We've got the NFL now, the NFL Sunday ticket. I think we need the auctioneer ticket to go with that. But yeah, we've streamed from all over the world. As Courtney said, you can find people that can shoot video all over the world. And bandwidth now has become a lot easier. In more rural areas where we really don't have the bandwidth, a lot of times we find somewhere that has bandwidth and we can fire a microwave to it, and get relatively, very stable. I've run whole pretty large events on microwave. so I think that's it's totally possible. Next question.
Tony Mobley from Noonan, Georgia, asking, please share the use of the iPad app Orion HDMI again, please.
I just downloaded that on my iPad, but I haven't got all the things set up where I have a viable HDMI output for it yet. So because the way my system is set up, I use one for my teleprompter, and then the other one's a multi-view. So I don't have that. I don't have that set up. So give us another couple days, but I'm trying to figure out a way to set it up so that we can see it, because it looks pretty useful. I also got the video assist, so I'm hoping to compare and contrast that relatively soon. Next question.
And it's from Eric Price in Kansas City, Missouri. Options for a camera to support a middle school auditorium. Required, good with both stage light and low light. Tight shots from the back of the room, 100 feet. XLR in, HDMI out, HD picture. School budget requires below 2 to 2.5K.
Jesse?
Oh, you were describing the Blackmagic 6K Studio with the Canon EF 70-200 lens until you got to the price, and then it became, I would look more towards a camcorder, and around $2,000, you can absolutely get a very high quality camcorder that records in 4K with XLR in and HDMI out.
Mitchell?
Yeah, you hit one of the Sony sweet spots at the FX30, and it does have XLR on the handle.
Yeah, but how much is it though? The FX30 is I think he needs it with the lens at $2,500. The FX30 is going to be a little more
pushing
than
3,000.
Right. So I do think that you're probably in a camcorder world, for that. I mean, there's potentially you could get the Blackmagic Cinema 4K would give you could put a big lens on the end of that one. I mean, that would get you really close to that price. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I'd say, these, like a JVC GY HM180, something like this. It has a camcorder, it's 4K camcorder. It has a decent lens with a pretty good zoom on it, and XLR inputs. So that'd probably do the trick for you. But the other thing is get a good tripod, a good fluid head on a tripod. That might run you up over your 2,500, even though the camera's only... Actually, I think that deal came with a tripod, but I wouldn't trust it. Get a good fluid head tripod, because if you're going to be on the long end of that lens following people around the stage, you're going to need a good tripod.
Yeah, and this one's just a touch more, which is the Sony. It would be $2,800, but it would be that's brand new. You might be able to find some deals. The Sony XD Cam PXW Z90B. And we've had ones that are similar to this, and they've got some. They have a 4K, which means I think that they also have a way to punch in for this as well. It is. I will tell you that I'm not a big fan of JVC's chips. so like I think that they, that's the only concern that I would have there. I've just never found them to be. I find that JVC is very aggressive about doing lots of cool things. The base quality of the chips has not been great at the lower end. They have a lot of good broadcast cameras. Go ahead, Jesse.
And I don't know who's going to be operating. If you're going to end up being the one who's operating it, I would consider augmenting that budget and use it as a donation to the school, because I'd rather be on the equipment that I want to use, whatever it costs. Just a thought.
Next question.
Next one is, for me, how do I turn off the new Sonoma camera gestures? They're driving me crazy.
I don't know how to turn them off. How do you? They've got to be in there. There's got to be a demo there. I do not know how to turn them off, but it's kind of amazing and weird that it just attaches. Like, you're not creating a separate camera. It just attaches to the thing. And again, that gesture specifically is weird.
I am
it's
very
weird that that's okay.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. I am very demonstrative with my hands during the show, and now I'm afraid to do anything because I'm going to discover something new. And the reason I put the question in is because I've never ever gotten this many Discord messages or comments on the event chat from office hours about people doing everything that I should do, including putting money in a jar every time I make a gesture. So now I have to sit here and not make any gestures until I figure out how to turn this thing off.
Next question.
Next question, Greg Gibson in Washington, D.C. I'm curious if anyone has seen this little GL-INET router with dual 5G failover. Wondering if I could be a poor man's pep wave.
John?
Mr. Gibson, I would hit up Keenan, since he's in this business with his router, and he's tested a lot of these third-party solutions, and he's got a good understanding of several that are out there that I've come across, and I've bounced it off him that he's tested in his career. So hit him up in Discord.
I know that a lot of people that I know have been using different versions of these GL-INETs. So these are definitely, these are a lot of little routers that people have been throwing in their backpacks. I know a lot of friends that have different versions of these. I don't know exactly which ones. That have been really successful. So I think that if it looks like it might work, it might be at least worth testing. Next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida. When you're editing a remote audio interview, what do you do with those little one-word internet glitches? Any preferred tools like Descript's regenerate feature? They're instant overdub.
I don't know. I have a feeling that a lot of these things will get figured out in the not too distant future. Yeah, that's the biggest problem. It's the thing we try to do is get people to not use Wi-Fi. And if you're wondering where most of those come from, it's because someone couldn't get an Ethernet cable to where they needed to get to, and so you see like little bumps that are there, and it's usually you'll lose maybe 10 words an hour that's of some little glitch there, and I know that's what he's talking about, but it's hard to fix. Although it'd be interesting to see if Descript could fix that word and you could put it back in. I don't know if it would really sound right. It might sound worse than just having it lost. A lot of people are pretty. The one thing we have learned is a lot of people are pretty understanding because they actually see it all day, every day in their Zoom meetings because no one uses wired connections. Go ahead, Courtney.
I mean, if you're dealing with it in post-production, it's not a live situation. You can find that word that glitched somewhere else and clip it out and paste it in, or better yet, just do double-end recording of all your interviews. So, have them send you the local recording, and you can find that spot and lay it in, or lay in the whole clean dialogue if you want to edit the whole thing together.
It's just hard on a normal basis to get double-end. Obviously, Zoom promised, still hasn't delivered double-end recording. And so I think that it's, but yeah, if you can get something that's relatively, Squadcast is another one that will do a double-end record for you. And we're actually thinking about moving to Squadcast for Michael Krasny, specifically because of the fact that we could get a double end on it. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree on the double end, and I can't tell you how many countless hours I've spent trying to find the word that should have been in there somewhere else in the script, and then hoping that their intonation is exactly right to match the sentence. So you always have about a 20% chance of that working.
Next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. I'm updating to Sonoma on all my computers, with the exception of the Mimo Live computer, which is that a good idea?
I would reach out to Oliver. I think that I don't know. Usually you want to give more complex systems like Memo little time to get themselves set up, but I'm sure he's had the beta for a while. But I would definitely reach out to Memo to Boinks and see what they say about that process. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael wants to know, would there be a Mac OS utility that can hide and show desktop Finder icons quickly?
Finder icons. I don't know why I would do that. So I'm not sure what the question is, mostly because I just don't know what the use is. I don't really look for much on my computer. I mostly just search. I just search, where is this? Where is this? Where is this? Sometimes I find it on my desktop, but I don't have a lot on my desktop. Next question.
Tony Mobley from Noonan, Georgia. Is there more value in the updated iMovie on Sonoma?
I don't think any of the video products had any major upgrades. They had some minor, tweaking, fixing, support for the biggest thing we saw, and the biggest reason you probably want to update iMovie would be it's probably updated to support the iPhone 15. So if you've got an iPhone 15, you should update all the video products inside of Apple, because it's going to take care of the color and all the other things that the iPhone 15 is doing more effectively. And this will become more important when the spatial video starts to roll out for the iPhone 15, because most likely the Apple software products will be the first ones to support that. Next question.
Next one in from John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. With a USB port on the iPhone 15, could we possibly use the new Shure XLR to USB device to bring audio into the phone?
Mitchell?
I believe that's the MV something 2 from Shure, and it's USB 2 compliant. So, yeah, it should work. I mean, everything points to yes.
Yeah, I think the only question would be does it deliver power? Does it deliver power to the, if you need a 48, if you're doing something with a dynamic mic, I think it could work. I'm just trying to figure out what app would do that. So this is that Shure that's talking about. This is on the end of it's kind of cute in the sense that it's on the end of this DPA. And so this is the piece that he's talking about here. If I pull it out. So this is and you've got the USB-C and a headphone jack for low latency. It's probably, we'll see if we can test this. We got a little time because we're going to end short right now, in case you're wondering. So we got a moment here. So we'll do like a mini lab as we try to figure this out real quickly. So I've got my iPhone 15, and here's one problem. All the cases for the iPhone 15 we found
don't support the USB-C plugs. Don't go all the way up to that.
They don't go all the way in. So, all right. Let's see here. And it's no shade on any case because they're all the same. They all have the same problem. Let's see here. Oh, are you connecting a pair of headphones? Let's see here.
Well, you could, because it identifies as a headphone out, because it has headphone outs on it.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see here. It asked me. It definitely saw it. Oh, and I'm getting a power light. It's doing 48 volt. Hold on. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out what I can use to test it.
Well, do you have just a recorder? Just a memo recorder?
The funny thing about me is that I don't move all my apps from one phone to another. So when I have a new phone, it doesn't have anything until I need it. So hold on, let me.
Well, you could FaceTime to one of your other friends that has Apple 50. So.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see here.
Yeah, the power is an issue. And the other question, you obviously couldn't use a condenser mic.
Power. And let's see here, hold on.
Yeah, it does supply 48 volts. That
yep.
Shure does.
So what I will say is that it is, hold on. Yep, it's working. Interesting. We'll have to test that more. So it works. And the reason I know is because I hooked up the DPA, I plugged this into the phone, and then I scratched it. So it didn't make any noise other than scratching the end of the thing, and it showed signal. So it worked with this DPA. That is super interesting. That is a great question, John, because I didn't think about that. But I think what's going to be interesting to see, I do think that we've talked about this needing to happen for a long time, but there's really the opportunity now with this camera to build a rig that is like, lets you put XLR in the side and gives it power, has a drive, has all those other things in it to really build out stuff. It's a really interesting opportunity. Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
I love the idea that Shure device itself can fix a lot of problems. I mean, that's got to be in your bag for going on remotes.
That's
because it means everything will work through that.
Yeah, no, that's why I got it. Absolutely. Next question.
Tony Mobley from Newton, Georgia. Setup has been redone. Is there a chance that I can get a ruthless review of my setup and not have to wait until next month and after hours?
Well, I mean, we've got a little extra time today, Tony. So if you go through the thing, our guys in the back end are yelling at me right now. But if you come in, we'll just do it right now. But otherwise, we can. You could come in, Tony, tomorrow. Just come in before the show, and we'll take a look at it. You know how to get there. Next question.
Greg Gibson from Washington, D.C. Alex, why the switch from the Sony Z1E10 camera over your FX30, and what lens combo are you using with it?
Yeah, so what I was trying to find is a less expensive solution for, something that was a little, we're trying to design kits around things. And I find the easiest way to design the kit is to use it. And so I have the EV10 or the EVZ10, and I'm using the 35 millimeter, and it's the one step down. It's like the 1.8 instead of the 1.4. The difference in cost between them is maybe a couple $1,000. So it's like $2,000 difference between the kit. And so when I think about building a kit system, I wanted to know, like, what is the possibility? And I like the fact that it's small, and I feel like it's a little closer to the webcam cost for me than what we were using. And before this, I was using the FX30, and before that, the Blackmagic 6K. The autofocus, I really think is important for this usage. I think that autofocus is not that important for a lot of other usages. So if you're doing a film, no one ever asks if an Arri has autofocus or a Venice has autofocus. And so a cinema camera doesn't really need autofocus in that sense, because you're always going to be having some kind of focus control on it, whether it's a follow focus or just the lens or whatever you're doing. So it's not important for that, but it is for web video, fast stuff, live stuff. This kind of thing where I can lean in, lean out. I can go like this, and if it doesn't see my eyes, it'll focus. So I wanted to find a less expensive way to do that, and so that's why I kind of wanted to see what it was like, so that if I buy other ones or would buy a kit show, like how hard is it to run. The downside of it is that the color control on the EV is much less. There's a lot. So for the most part, you get the autofocus is a little slower, but on the most part, it looks pretty much the same as the FX30, but same size chip. I did get the little adapter that Mitch suggested, which is like a micro HDMI to regular HDMI that locks on. I have a smallrig cage, and then on the side of that smallrig cage, you can see Mitch is showing that right now, but that little adapter there means that someone can cut to Mitch there for a second so you can see that, because I can't show it. So that little adapter takes the pressure off of the, so I can plug and unplug it without having to worry about it. So I did do that. And the power supply to the EV is better than the FX30. So you have to use this battery thing, because Sony is super weird. Like, everybody does something weird, and the whole thing that I can't just plug into the USB-C on the side without a battery and have it work for Sony is weird. Like, it's just weird, and it's like, and so the advantage of the EV is it's got like a little door that you can run the cable into. But Sony should just fix that. Like, that's just a stupid thing to do. Anyway, so you can't ever find one camera that does all the things right. Like, it'd be amazing to get one camera that just did it all right. I would say, again, Blackmagic does almost everything right except for the autofocus, which I just found myself when I wanted to shorten my depth of field. If you look back on the old shows, I'd rock back and forth trying to find my focus, or try to redo autofocus. It was not a great experience. So anyway, as a web camera or as a run and gun, I prefer the Sony cameras, but they have all these weird things to them. And so anyway, so the FX30, I may go back to, because I can't load LUTs into the EV. So the LUTs, you don't have any LUTs. And you have less control in general over the color in the EV than you do in the FX30. I mean, that's what you're paying for, I guess. So I'm really interested. I'm kind of holding out to buy any more cameras until I get to test the LR1. So the LR1 it's the size of a web camera, and it's got the A7S3 or A7S4, like full frame sensor.
No audio. Has no audio.
I don't care about the audio, because I never use audio with the camera. So I don't care about audio for it. So what potentially is there, and it's got a whole API, and it's got all these controls because it's designed to be a drone camera. So I actually think that it could be the perfect kit camera for the way I work. But we have to see. We'll have to get a hold of one and see. So that could, because it's really small. You can put the regular lenses on, everything else. And so I'm really interested in seeing that. But that'll be specifically for sending out with kits. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But until I think what Blackmagic should do, I think Blackmagic has the whole thing, especially now with the new cinema camera that's full frame. They got the whole package ready to go. And what I think they should do is, instead of trying to figure out autofocus, just put a LiDAR sensor on it. Just do the same LiDAR sensor that it's similar to what Apple does and other people. Do a LiDAR sensor. I mean, the new DJI 40 camera uses LiDAR and for autofocus. I think that's really the solution, because it'll just give you a lot more control. Next question.
Next question from Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. Has any of the panel had a chance to use personal voice on iOS?
I keep on trying to get around to it. At first I said, well, they need to give us 3 hours. And then I went to 11 Labs and it said, give us 3 hours. I was like, oh, that's a lot. I got to figure that out. So anyway, so I have to go back and try to, but I am interested in both 11 Labs and the personal voice to do that, but I haven't tested it yet. Next question.
Robin Cutshaw from Atlanta, Georgia. What fiber range extenders do you use for a 100+ foot HDMI run?
I use links. So this is the yellow bricks. So let me see if I can find the links. You can use a lot of things, but these are the ones that, I mean, and I will not say that these are the the least expensive solution. But these are the ones that, let's see here. They make a lot of different, let's see. So they have lots and lots of different ones: fiber conversions, optical switches, sync generators. When I'm doing production, these are the ones that I have a tendency to. They have whole rack frames. So we used to have this rack frame back in the day. Anyway, but these are to me, they're the rock solid throwdowns that you can use. Of course, Blackmagic makes some as well. So they have some other ones that you can use that are there. So a lot of them are really inexpensive, and then you have to buy the SFPs for them, and then they get really expensive, or they get a lot more expensive because of the SFPs. So that's the other thing to look at. But the other thing to think about is how many signals you want to send. So, for instance, with those yellow bricks, we would send 4 signals, 1080p, 4 3Gs, because it'd be like a 12G signal over one piece of fiber out to something that needs to get there. So think about not just individual runs out there, but think about how to get, mux. You can mux a bunch of them on top of. They'll use different wavelengths, and you can put 4 cameras. I think the most we've ever put onto one piece of fiber is about 8. And the problem you get into when you have too many signals on the fiber is when the fiber takes a hard turn. So when you're moving it around, if it takes a hard turn, some of the wavelengths sometimes don't make the turn. So it's just the wavelengths. You have to be careful of what colors you're using there. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, the Biden administration is planning to bring back net neutrality rules. Do you think it will positively affect the internet in the U.S.?
Jesse?
I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get into all of that. But the shorthand I will use is pretty much any policy that pushes back against the will of Verizon and Comcast when it comes to internet is going to be good for the consumer.
Yeah, I don't think it'll make any difference. We've been talking about this for a long time. I'm just like, sure. It doesn't, it won't make any sizable difference. I don't think that it's not it's not nearly as important as people make it out to be. But, I think that, the problem the Biden administration has, this is just from a technical perspective, is that the folks that are trying to make these rules don't have any industry experience. So they just make up a lot of stuff that doesn't have any impact. Next question.
Tony Mobley in Newnan, Georgia again. Alex, when is your app going to be released for writing on video?
Working on it. I will say, so here's the problem with releasing products into the App Store, is that if you release them and they're not just right, you're going to get a bunch of 1 stars and people, attacking it. And it really makes it hard to dig out of that hole. So if I can see things that I think need to be just tweaked just a little bit, I'd rather delay it a little bit longer. People think that the App Store is just like throw it up and see how it goes. You cannot do that. You cannot do that on the Apple App Store because the bad ratings I've talked to a lot of developers, the bad ratings will annihilate your sales. And so you have to really there's just couple little things and it works. Here's the worst part is it works great for me the way I use it, but I can see little holes in places that people will go, So we're trying to fix that right now. And we might take some stuff out of it just so that we don't have to deal with it. But Juan has done an incredible job with it, and I love the app. so I do think that we'll put it out there. I just want to clean up a couple little things before we release it. Go ahead, Mitchell.
We will serve no app before it's time.
Yeah, exactly. So but we're very, very close. It's working really well right now. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael in with a question. Visual Lookup in iOS 17 is smart enough to interpret those symbols for laundry care and tell you what they are. Could you see consumer products moving to QR codes instead of specific symbols in the future?
If they're able to read the lookup, the visual lookup tables, then you probably don't need the QR code. So the QR codes are good because you can put much more complex information into it. But I think that for those simple things, it might make sense. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I don't want to have to pull out a device to read, the washing instructions on my shirt. I'm perfectly capable of reading English, or a little symbol that says, don't dry clean, or, cold water only.
I don't know. I don't
There
look
could
at
be
any of
common symbols for
I
that.
don't even know what those symbols mean. Like, I'm just like, is it, if it's got nylon in it, I'm not going to iron it or buy it. Yeah, go
Or
ahead.
buy it, yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll
Mitchell.
wear it once until I sweat, and
Well, the
then
thing
I'll
is,
throw
here's
it away.
I mean, the thing is, when I travel, anytime I don't care about wrinkles, then I wear nylon because I can wash it in the sink in the hotel room. So all my travel clothes are all nylon or polyester or whatever, so that they quickly dry. And so I I have a lot of that, but all my real clothes are all cotton. Like, and the main thing is because I can iron it. Like, I know people will say you can iron nylon, but man, that gets ugly really fast. Like,
So when
it gets all sticky on top. It gets all sticky with your iron, and and I have a thing about clothes
Steam
being
it.
relative.
Steam it.
I know, but
Just
okay.
get a steamer. Yeah.
I
So when
know.
you travel, you're just a ball of static electricity. That's
Exactly. Well, no, it's a mixture of it, but it's a funny thing because you'll see all like these my travel, like if I'm traveling for a high profile event, you'll see this mix in my bag because I'll go for 6 weeks on a carry on, like I don't need anything else, and everything's polyester and everything is just my travel stuff. There, all my pants and I have all these ex officio, the travel shirts and everything else, and that's what I travel in. But then there'll be like a French cuff shirt and a blazer and slacks and all the other stuff that's there. Yeah, and so I was talking to my daughter was asking me like, why do you use French cuffs? And I'm like, it's a little pizzazz, just a little pizzazz at the end. And you work at it, and I'm obsessed with cufflinks. Anyway, so that's a whole nother problem that I have a sickness of cufflinks. so anyway, go ahead, Mitchell.
The French cuffs that are different color than the shirt. You got a blue shirt, white cuff, et cetera, et cetera. Well, hey, here's the thing. At least those whatever they are, I might have one on my shirt here, at least you can figure out what they might be for. I don't know anybody that can read a QR code and mentally tell you exactly what it says. It just doesn't happen.
I bet you there's somebody out there that can do that. Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
If your restaurant has a QR code only menu, there's no paper menu, we will walk out immediately. I don't trust any QR code that I don't know where it's coming from.
What's funny is that I'm the opposite. I will not go to a restaurant twice if I can't use my Apple Pay, or any. There's no location that I'll go to twice. Like I write it off. If I can't do Apple Pay, I'm like, well, I'll never come back here again. So then oh, by the way, just because we're talking about cufflinks, I got some new ones that are really good. Look at this. Wait, hold on. See if it focuses. See that? You see that little it's like little gears. It's like gears on a cufflink. I just thought that was the best. Anyway, this is what happens when you don't ask enough questions and we have time. Next question.
Next question from Paul Kovacs in Elkhart, Indiana. Might have missed this from past shows, but wondering what Alex thinks about the future with ATSC 3.0 for local and national broadcasters, and will this help compete with the streaming industry?
Nope. Streaming broadcast is dead. Broadcasters have to figure out a way to stream. I think it's great that it's out there. It's just that it's too hard now, and now the streaming stuff is picking up speed, and everything is happening so quickly. There's still a population that will still use these for a while, but it's not. It's on a downward trend, and there's nothing that's going to stop that. I think that any thought that some piece of technology is going to turn this upward there's a lot of wishful thinking there. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, ATSC 3 the problem is it's not a mandatory adoption with a drop-dead date yet, so it's very slow rollout in very many cities. I have it on my Samsung TV as a next-gen TV receivers and ATSC 3 receiver in it, and it does include digital two-way, exchange of data other than just broadcast. So, it could make some inroads, but the problem is adoption is so slow. It's going to take at least 10 years, and they're going to have to eliminate ATSC 1 from TV sets before it's adopted completely.
Well, and again, in 10 years, it'll be gone. Like broadcast as we know it will be gone in 10 years, unless we, I don't know any way to change the direction of that trajectory. I think we have to be realistic here. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, could you see the Blackmagic camera app introducing an OSC or a similar API for remote control? I could see some use cases for it if you could control an iOS device camera from an ATEM.
Jesse?
Blackmagic's really, really good about continuing to support and develop their product line and their software line. That said, I don't see a world in which you're controlling your iPhone from an ATEM. The company is so particular about using open connectivity for all of their devices to lock into that one ecosystem and have a back and forth dialogue with your ATEM seems unlikely until you remember that you can plug your iPhone into the ATEM as is and use it as a network uplink if you want to broadcast. So maybe.
I see. I'll beg to differ on this one. I think that the ATEM, because they own the app and the ATEM, the chances of the ATEM eventually being able to shade the camera on the iPhone is almost 100% in the next by NAB, next NAB, not this one that's coming right up, but by the NAB, the idea of being able to shade it even remotely. Imagine being able to link a Blackmagic camera streaming SRT back to your switcher anywhere in the world, and you being able to shade that camera. Like, that's what Blackmagic could do, and I think that that's what they will do eventually. Next question.
Next question in from Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. Our Zoopia has a $65 15-inch TikTok store mobile monitor at 1080p. Is that a good buy?
It depends. It probably puts a picture out. The question is does it have does it have a, for me, it has to have a VESA mount. Like, if it doesn't have a VESA mount, I'm not going to get it because I can't figure out what to do with it. But I think that I have one that's made by Niuto, Niuto, that does have a VESA mount, and it was about the same price. I go according.
That's a pretty good price, but make sure it's an IPS monitor and make sure you check the screen brightness on it, because some of those are not very bright. The LED backlights are not very bright. And yeah, make sure it has HDMI and USB-C input. So it has, a lot of them will have a USB-C, two USB-C inputs, one for power and one for power and video. So you can use a single cable to plug into a Mac or MacBook Pro or whatever type of laptop you want to plug it into to extend your screen, as long as it has video over USB-C. So make sure of those things and check the brightness and make sure it's an IPS display.
It is kind of amazing how cheap these monitors have gotten. That's all I got to say. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, the conventional wisdom is that a 16-inch MacBook Pro is better, but would an external monitor like a 17-inch 4K Perfect connected to a 14-inch MacBook Pro be a solid balance of portability and flexibility for most production tasks? My M2 Pro Mac Mini is my main machine.
Good, Jesse.
Oh, for sure. Yes. I would absolutely have an external monitor for any laptop I use, and anytime I'm using a laptop in the office or on a job site, we bring in an extra monitor just for that. That said, my concern with the laptops is the heat dissipation, and the 14-inch will have worse heat dissipation than the 16-inch, just because it has less metal through which to dissipate all that heat. So if you I believe that this might be going back to a question from a couple of days ago about running perpetual video on a laptop. And that's why I'm talking about heat dissipation so adamantly. But yes, always have an external monitor for your laptop, especially if it's a smaller screen.
Go ahead, Courtney.
And if that external monitor doesn't have its own power supply, if you're pulling power for the external monitor over the USB-C cable, just bear in mind that your battery life is going to go down quite a bit if you're running on batteries and not carrying around your power brick.
Well, good Saturday morning. Thanks, everybody, for all the questions. Thanks to our producers for the great questions that you put in there and kept us rolling here. Thanks to the panelists. Can't do this without you. And thanks to the incredible team on the back end that makes all of this possible. It's really fun. These Saturdays are going to be really fun tests. I think now people are starting to get there, starting to see it. You can always watch it either on an HDR monitor with a set-top box that's like an Apple TV or a Chromecast or many of the other ones that support HDR. You should be able, and let us know how it looks. I had some technical issues before the show, so I wasn't able to quite get set up to do what I wanted to do today. But next week you should see us play with this a little bit more as we kind of push the envelope of what this looks like. You'll see us starting to do individual shading on everybody. We've now piped out all of that in, so it's relatively straightforward. And I'm hoping to get out this weekend to start shooting some HDR countdown clocks. So we're going to talk about that in the not too distant future. So we can. So I'm going to be going out grabbing those along with ambisonic sound that we can use for the opens. So stay tuned for. I know. You probably don't even know where to go shoot HDR countdown clocks. I mean, they're just floating in the air, in the middle of nowhere. Every once in a while, you'll be walking along in Mount Tam, and you'll just see a countdown clock, and you can shoot it there.
I just pull them off of SpaceX when they're doing a launch, which happens about every 2 days.
No, they're just like a countdown. It's like, there's a countdown clock there. So that's what I'm trying to imagine is for the countdown clocks is I was just walking along and I saw a countdown clock and I shot it. So what I'm doing is shooting some reflection maps and HDR lighting maps, and then background plates. And I know it. So I'm taking countdown clocks to another level. I'm working on building the countdown clocks in Cinema 40. And so it's it should be fun. Anyway, so stay tuned for those things. But we'll keep on playing with this. We're going every Saturday. We'll be doing these tests. Every Saturday we'll be doing this as a test. Again, full week on Thanksgiving week, full week on Christmas week, and then our goal is that by January 1st we just commit to doing a full-on HDR 4K every day. So stay tuned for as we kind of move forward and give us your feedback on it. Also look at it later. It'd be really interesting to see what people see. What we think is happening is it looks one way in live and then it looks another way in VOD about a day later. So let us know how that looks as well, and we'll talk more about it. You're more than welcome to bring it up on Sunday, and we can chat about it a little bit. Another quick reminder also that we have a panelist meeting. If you're interested in being on the panel and joining us here at 9 o'clock, that's in about 20 minutes. We're going to do it. You can, I think if you sign up, we can still figure that out, or just ping me or Mitch, because he just reminded me on Discord. We'll make sure that you have the, but you can go to officehours.global/panelist and sign up, and we'll make sure that everybody gets invited, even if it's in the next 20 minutes. So if you're interested in asking questions about being a panelist, or you've already been a panelist, you have more questions, or if you are interested in being a panelist, we're going to do that once a month. We'll have a half an hour just to chit chat. So jump in. We'll be doing that in about 20 minutes here. We traveled 70,000 miles. It's 112,000 kilometers, and that is 555 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into after hours.
I need about 20 minutes to figure out how to turn these gestures off. I'm like so gun shy with them now.
It's not what you know.
I think if there's
how
a
well you Google.
one-finger gesture, that will turn it off. Yeah.
No, I've already tried that one.
That one doesn't turn it off.
That one doesn't do it either.
Yeah. They missed the boat on that one.
So it's gone from being kind of fun
live
to
long
annoying.
when you do this? Does it add length to your ears?
Yeah, perfect. I'm still trying to figure out how they got that into the UVC.
I know, it's weird. It's super weird.
There.
I find that to be very weird. Like, that's all I got to say. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it's gone. It's. I mean, I like to do stuff during a show. I can't do it now. I'm afraid I'm going to invoke something nasty.
Just remember, it's not what you know. It's how well you Google. I'm sure it's there. It's waiting for you.
Thanks, sir.